everybody, it's me, Eden from Lemonerdy. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be coding a flying game in Scratch. In this game, you can go up and down, and you can collect coins and avoid buildings while flying through the sky. Now, before we get started, make sure that you guys give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. And don't forget to follow my studio on Scratch, which has all of my tutorials in it, all the example projects, and even some projects that other people have made using my tutorials. And as you can see on the side, I have my list of featured coders, which are people who have followed the tutorials and shared them with me by commenting on the example games or on my profile. So if you guys want to be featured coders, don't forget to follow the studio, which will be linked down in the description. Now we can get into the coding. So let me share my screen actually inside of the editor this time so you guys can see what we're doing. So the first thing that we're going to do in this tutorial, we're going to start off a little bit differently. Usually we draw as we go, but this time we're going to get all the sprites that we need right off the bat because they're all going to kind of need information from each other, so we need to have them all created. So we're going to need some coins, we need hearts for the lives, and we need a flying cat and buildings for them to avoid. So to make this coin, we're really just going to have a circle inside of another circle. And of course, you guys can also see the example project of this in the link in the description. So let's make these all centered on the middle of the, oops, I'm still in the circle thing. So we'll make two circles, the little one inside of the big one. It doesn't really matter which one's, make sure that the smaller one is behind it. So now we have our coin, and we can go to choose a sprite and then search cat, and we want cat flying. We're not going to use the one where they're facing upwards, so you can delete that, but we're also going to be duplicating this. So let's duplicate this one, and in the second one, take out the eyes. It's going to look very creepy for a second, but you'll see what I'm trying to do very soon. Make a line, and that the width will be about 2. Then make 2 little sideways V's. So this costume is going to be shown whenever the cat hits the building. So it's going to be like they're going, ow, that hurt, or something like that. Then take the mouth, and so select the mouth, ungroup it from what it's already with. Then you can select the mouth on its own, and then flip it vertical so that they're frowning instead of smiling. So now they have their okay, I'm flying, I'm happy, all that, and then it's ow, like you made me hit a building. Why? So we have that, we have our cat, we have our coins that they can collect. The coins should probably be a little bit smaller. Let's shrink this up a little bit. And then let's make the outline like 3, so it's not too thick. Then we're going to need our hearts, so that's going to be the lives that the character has. And I have a slight hack for drawing hearts. I wouldn't exactly call it a hack because it's kind of ugly. It doesn't really work all the time, but the way that I like to draw hearts in the Scratch editor is I will make 2 circles, and then, so that's like the crease in the heart, and then draw a square in between them. So it's going to look like Mickey Mouse a little bit, and then just delete one side of this square. So then we'll have a triangle, and then I think you guys can see where I'm going with this. You can like, well, there's going to be like a hole in the middle which you can fill in later, but it's basically a heart basically. So let's just like get a circle and fill that in. So we have our slightly lopsided heart. It's got some issues, but that's okay. There we go. And then that's going to be our 1 heart. So that's when they're like really, it's about to be game over. A little bit over. No, that's even more lopsided than before. Maybe not. Let's just leave it how it is. No one's looking that close at them. They'll be small. So let's group this all together. That's going to be 1 heart. So let's name this 1 heart. I put heat. Okay, then we'll duplicate this costume. Then select this. Oh, make sure that it's grouped because it's easier to move things around that way. Then, oh, you know, I did it last time. Forget what I just said. So you have the 1 heart here, but we're going to start out with 3 hearts. So copy and paste this, then copy and paste it again. So we have our 3 hearts here, and then we're going to work backwards so that they stay in the same space as they go away. So this would actually be our 3 hearts. And then for the 2 and 1 hearts, we're just going to delete the other 2. And then for this one, we would just delete 1. So then the hearts would be depleting like that. And then we're going to have 1 blank. Oh, that's not right. Then we're going to have 1 blank costume, which is going to be for when they have no hearts. And when it switches to this costume, that's when it's game over. Then the last thing that we need is to go to choose a sprite, and that's where we're going to get our buildings from. So search up buildings, and here you can see when you hover over it, there's a lot of different kinds of buildings. And that's exactly what we're going to need for this game, because the buildings are going to be swiping past and trying to get you out of the game when you're trying to collect all the coins, because the coins will appear all over, all in different levels of the screen. So you'll have to go down eventually to get the coins, which means you also have to avoid the buildings. So once we have our buildings, we don't really need to edit these at all. But for the backdrop, we are going to need a sky. And for the sky, so what I did for the sky in the other one was, let me show you the original game. My original game, it is shared on Scratch, which is, it's linked in the description so you guys can see it. But here's the original game on Scratch, and the way that I did it is I took all of the buildings and I just completely colored them blue. And once I completely colored them blue, I just added another square that was that same shade of blue, so it looks kind of like a city skyline. And it's going to take me a while to do this again, so I'm just going to take this, open up my backpack, and drag this into my backpack so that I can use it in my other thing. And if you guys don't know what the backpack is, then you can check out my What is the Backpack explainer video, and there I show you how exactly you can use this. And you'll actually get an example right now because I'm going to import this into the project that we're working on right now. So we can go back to the one that we're using, and in the backdrops, we'll just bring it in from our backpack, and there we have our play screen. We also need our start screen, so we will call this home screen. And this one, it won't have the fancy font, unfortunately, that I had before because I actually imported that from Photoshop. And I can't do that. It takes a long time to import it from Photoshop. I saved it as an SVG. I'll probably make a tutorial on how you guys can do that later because, as you can see, Scratch only has a few fonts that you can use. And they're, no offense to Scratch, they're a little bit boring. But you can import your own fonts if you use Photoshop, and I will show you guys how to do that later. And you don't even have to use Photoshop. Anything that you can use to save something as an SVG that you can use. But anyway, back to the tutorial that we're doing right now. We're gonna make the name of the game, which I just called Flight because it wasn't really in my creative mode at the time. I was just like, I'm gonna code this. So I called it Flight, and then we need our button to play the game. And for this, I didn't actually paint it. I went here and I searched up button. And then they have this button that you can use. I recolored it a little bit, but we don't really need to recolor it for this tutorial. You can color it any way that you like. You can make it match the background. You can really do whatever. Let's move that to the center, make it a bit bigger. And we're going to use our text tool to add the play sign. Then go back to select and make the play bigger. There we go. I think it's and also always remember to move things to the center, because if you don't move things to the center, then they might end up not being aligned the way that you want them to be aligned. So it's just easier to keep everything in this little locked center place. Like, it might look a little bit proportional to you, like the longer you stare at it, but eventually it ends up not being proportional. So yeah. And then let's make this like smack dab in the middle by making that 0. And so now we have all of our sprites kind of kerfluffled in the middle. But this has saved us some time so that we won't have to keep drawing things in the middle of trying to make our game. So let's start by going to the play screen, since that's where the most of the coding will be. So let's just switch the backdrop to there so we can see what our thing would look like. And what we want to do first and foremost is make our cat move up and down but stay in the same place. So when we click either below or above the sprite, it will move there. And it doesn't even have to be right here. It can be here or here, but it will stay in the same spot horizontally, but will go up and down vertically. So to do that, we want when start clicked. So when start clicked, we need a forever loop. So when start clicked, we need 2 ifs. Make sure that you do not do an if else, or else it will glitch. So to make this, we want it if your mouse is above it, go up, and if it's below it, go down. So to do that, we need a more than and a less than. Then we will go to stencing and get mouse Y. So that's the measure of where your mouse is on the up and down axis. So if mouse Y is more or less than, and when we want to put in there is the Y coordinate of the sprite, so then we'll go to motion and get Y position and put that in there. Then we'll get change Y by, I think I did 3 last time. So if it's above it, we want it to go up, which means it'll change Y by a positive number. And if it's below it, then we want it to change it by -3, which means it will go down. So let's put that in and test that out. So let's go inside of the forever loop. So it's going up and down, but we also need it to only work when the mouse is down. So we'll get another if and get mouse down. I got the if first. I got the mouse down first. So then if mouse down, then check. So now it's moving the right way. And you can make this slower or faster depending on how easy you want the game. And depending on how easy you want the game to be. And we only want this cat to show when you're on the play screen. So we'll need when backdrop switches to home screen, hide, and when it switches to play screen, show. So go to events and get those 2 out, then go to looks, and then get show and hide for each one. So that will work. And then now that it can go up and down, we will first work on the buildings coming at it. So this is similar to the apple catching game, where the buildings are coming at you and you don't want, but instead of you want them to touch you, you don't want them to touch you. And it's also different because you don't want you don't you don't want, we're not using any clones. So the building is only going to go one at a time. But in the coins, we will be using clones because you have to be able to get more than one coin at a time. So to do this, we're also going to need the same scripts for when it's on the play screen show and when it's on the home screen hide. So let's go ahead and drag those into the building thing to duplicate it. So we already have that. We won't need to worry about that when we're switching between the beginning and the playing. So when we're going to need when I receive time to fly. So that's a message that will say that it's time to start the game. So when I receive time to fly, we want it to repeat going and coming across the screen until the hearts reach 0. So we will get a repeat until, and then get an equal sign, and then repeat until, where it is, where is it? I said where it is. Repeat until, and then let's get the variable for something of something, which will, it usually says backdrop of stage. Then we'll use sprite 1, and then we'll do costume number, and that would be the 4th one. So the 4th one is when there are no hearts left. So it will repeat going until there are no hearts left. And if you want, you can also name your sprites so that it's easier to tell which one is which, since we'll probably be using this one a couple times. Name that hearts, which I spelled heats again because it's hard to type on my mom's computer. And then we'll type this play button. There we go. So back to the buildings. If you guys remember in the apple catching game, it had to start in a certain place and then keep going until it touched the person. It touched the player or the basket. So we want it to start off screen. Let's have it start like right here. Oh, and there's one building that's too tall that you actually wouldn't be able to fly over. So you would have to just select all of this and move it down a little bit. And that would be building H. So we'll have it go here. So it'll start there and then repeat change X by, let's say, -5. And then it will repeat changing that until it gets to, let's say, well, it would have to be off screen. So it would probably repeat that until it gets to -240, which is the dimensions of the stage. So we'll get repeat until, then get an equals, and then get X position equals -240. Or, then get an or, and then or touching the cat or touching the color orange. So the reason why we have to do touching the cat or touching color orange is because when I tested this, it wouldn't always pick up that it was touching the sprite. I'm not sure why. I think that's just a glitch in Scratch, but some extra insurance that it's checking whether it's touching the thing or not is using the color and the color of the sprite and the sprite. So that way they don't get any extra points that they didn't deserve because the hearts weren't going down because it wasn't picking up that it was touching the cat. So to do that, we will get touching and then change this to cat flying, and then in the other side of the or, it will be touching color, and then click on the color, then the eyedropper, and get the orange from the cat. Then we will put those there. So it will repeat going this way. Now, what happens if it is touching the cat or the color? So if that happens, we'll get an if, and then duplicate the or that has the cat flying and the touching color orange. And then we will put in a broadcast lives down, because that means that they hit the building. And if the lives go down, now we need to go to the hearts and have them receive that message. So when they receive that message, they should change to their next costume. And if they're on the 4th costume, that means that they're out of lives and that they should broadcast game over. So we'll have it go to the next costume, and if, and then get costume number, and then an equals. So if costume number equals 4, then broadcast game over. And we'll come back to what happens when they broadcast game over in a little bit. And then we also need to make sure you make a new message for that game over. Make sure that it always starts at 3 lives. So when we receive time to fly, when I receive time to fly, switch costume to 3 hearts. So that would be our first costume. And then we also want this to only show on the play screen and hide on the home screen. So let's go to the cat and drag and drop those into the hearts so we don't have to worry about that later. So now back to our buildings, and we have it moving until it touches the cat or touches that, and then once it gets there, we want it to hide. And then if the cat ever touches the thing, then the lives down message is broadcasted. So we can also have this cat receive the lives down message, and whenever it gets that, it will switch to the hurting costume where it's like, ow, I hit a building, it's all your fault. So we'll have it switch to cat flying 2, wait 1 second, and then switch to cat flying A again. I'm just going to take both of them out since I know I'm going to have to come back to it anyway, and then just thunk that little wait 1 second in the middle there. That's called lazy coding, because I don't like switching between all the different categories. It's just like really tiring to like move my finger up and down the mouse pad. It's so exhausting. I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, but we also want it to start out as the regular costume where it is all safe and undamaged. So when I receive time to fly, switch costume to cat flying A. So that's the first costume. So now that we have the buildings moving, let's test out this buildings moving one. Oh no, why are they going down? I think I did something different. Oh, of course, an ambulance is going by right now. Hope whoever that is okay. So let's see what's happening here. So repeat going until it's touching that, and when it's touching that, going down. Let me go back to my other one to make sure that I did that right with the buildings. I think... yeah, I think I did something different. Yes, I did. Okay, so another thing that we want to do is we don't want the buildings to just keep coming over and over again, so we want it to wait a random number 1 to 10 seconds before it does that. We want it to hide at the beginning and show after it's weighted. And then we also want it to switch to a random costume so that there are different buildings coming by. And how many costumes are in here? There are 10 buildings, so we'll also put a random 1 to 10 in there. Then another thing that I did is I put glide 2.5 seconds. So glide 2.5 seconds to negative 300, and then the X that it's already at. The X should always stay the same. So let's try that, see what happens. So it's going to wait a random number of seconds so that there's not just buildings coming back to back to back to back to back to back to back. So there's a building. I don't think it should have broadcast lives down. If it was touching cat flying, it should. I'm pretty sure that's how I did. Yes, I remember now. I didn't do equals 240, I did more than, yes. Okay, so where it says equals 240, do more than 240 instead. So this way it's gonna glide, and then it's gonna, let's try that out. I'm not sure if that was what it was. I'm pretty sure that is, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is how it was. Yeah. And then at the end it should hide. Yeah, it should hide. Oh yes, I remember. It should also have it go to, it should also start at 240 and then glide. Because if it starts at the end, how is that going to work? It's not going to make any sense. So let's test that out, see how that works. So now it passed it. It touched the cat. Broadcasted lives down. And received lives down. Next costume. And then if so, broadcast game over. So the way that I test to see if things are working correctly is that let me just make sure that this is exactly what I did before, because the script is kind of complicated. It like requires a little bit of, so I think I started at 210, not 234. It's glide 2.5 seconds to 300, then at Y5 touching color or that, then keep changing Y by -5, then if touching that color, then hide. Then broadcast lives down. That is what I did. Let's try it one more time. See how this works. So it passed it and it still didn't touch it. So to test, this is like a tricky thing. So to test it, then you can do when start clicked and then forever. This is like a very helpful testing technique to make sure that your thing is sensing things right and to find some bugs. If touching buildings, then do something. So if touching buildings, then saying hello. So I actually on accident left that script in when I was testing and posted the game like that. So I had to change that later. But it is still a great way to test your games to see if something is wrong or you did something wrong. So it didn't say. Oh, I forgot to activate that script because I didn't do that. Let's try that one more time. Forgot to activate the script. So once it gets there, I don't know why it's not hiding. Yes, now I realize what happened. It's supposed to be if X position is less than negative 40. Okay, that's why. See, I always mix up these greater thans and less thans. So if X position is, repeat until X position is less than negative 240. Yes, that's right. Okay. So let's try this one more time. Hopefully that will work. Yes, so that worked. We know it's touching it now, so the building has no excuse to not detect it. It's touching it. The cat is saying so that it's touching it. And it is exactly how I had it before. And it worked that way. I don't know why it wouldn't now. But let's see. So all of that is the same. It's going lives down and then hide. So touching cat find broadcast lives down. What is different? So repeat and maybe, let's see. So it should be switching to the next costume. I don't know if it's ever receiving this. So it's this script works. So let's just let's move on from here and then we'll come back and see if this works later. We'll move this to the center and make it only show when it's on the home screen. So when start clicked, we want it to switch the backdrop to the home screen. When it's clicked, switch it to the play screen and hide. To the play screen and hide. And then when backdrop switches to home screen, show. So we always want this to show on the home screen, and this will give us when that. Now let's go to the coins. And the way the coins are going to work is these ones are going to be using clones. But first thing we're going to do is make sure that it doesn't show up on the home screen when it's done. That is a glitch that I came across before. So not when start clicked. When I start as a clone, we're going to make it create the clones after. But when I start as a clone, forever, it's going to delete this clone because we're going to need it later. Then wait until the hearts. Wait until the costume number of hearts. Oh, I did costume name. Until costume number of hearts equals 4, and then delete this clone. Because sometimes the clones will still show up on the stage even though they're not supposed to if you leave and the coins are still on the screen. The next thing we need to do is when I receive time to fly, then repeat until we have no lives left. Let's duplicate this and put that in there. Repeat until we have no lives left. Wait a random 1 to 5 seconds actually, so it's more common that you get coins than buildings. Wait random 1 to 5 seconds and then create a clone of myself. Then we'll have another when I start as a clone. We will have it go to the X. We'll have the X will always start at 240, but the Y will be random. So set X to 240 and then set Y to random. So random negative 240 to 240. So we'll always start here, but it will start at a different place here. And then repeat until, which is in control. Repeat until touching cat flying. And you can add the touching orange here, but the coin never had a problem with sensing touching the cat. Repeat until touching cat flying, or not repeat until touching cat flying, or the X is more than 240. So, or the X is more than 240. And then let's go to motion and get that X variable. So X position is more than 240, and then we'll put each of these on one side of the OR and smack that back in the repeat until. So this is repeat until it gets to the end or it's touching the cat flying. So that's if they miss the coin or they don't, it'll keep going across the screen. So that would be change X by -5. And then if it is touching the cat, then if touching cat flying, and we also want it to show at the beginning and hide at the end, so you can add those in there. So if touching cat flying, then change score by 1. So you new variable crowd score. So I think sometimes it takes a little bit for it to show up. There we go. So set score, not set score, change score by 1. And at the beginning, we will also want them to set the score to 0. And when they receive time to fly, also set the score to 0. So that will be the beginning of a new game. Their score resets to nothing. And then if you want, you can also add a sound effect. They actually have a sound effect in here called coin that sounds like that you can add in there. And then start sound coin. Let me make sure that's exactly what we had before. Yes, it is. Then yep, then hide and then delete this clone. Oh, and make sure that this is actually, it equals less than negative 240. So wait, repeat until x equals less than negative 240, and then keep going. Yes, that is right. Yep, so now it is going. I think it is, yes. Okay. And let's actually make that, because the coin is not going any further than that, because sometimes the sprites will stop on their own once they get to the end. So we can have it as less than negative 230, just in case. Let's try that out. It's going, and they got it. So that's working. Let's make the score seeable. I don't think that's a real word. Yep, so now it gets to the end and goes away. So that is working. The coins are working. The coins also do not need to be visible unless they're on the play screen. So, but the original coin is not going to show, only the cones are. So we'll just make sure that the original coin only hides when it goes there. We don't want it to show when it goes to the home screen. So let's try it out at the beginning. Press play. It takes us here, and oh, what we forgot to do is when it switches, when Backdrop switches to the thing, we also want it to broadcast time to fly, because that's what triggers everything. So our things are at 3. I just touched the building. It didn't trigger any of the hearts. Don't know why. The coins should be showing up at some point. At least they should. Repeat until the customer has +4. So let's stop this for a second and see if things are working. So this says this is false, so it should be creating clones of itself. When it starts its clone, it should show, and then so this, when I start as a clone, is working. I don't know why I didn't start then. Well, let's try that one more time. Oh, so we're getting some coins. So we've got a building. We've got the coins. The coins are collectible. All of that is good. Let's see what happens if we get hit by a building. We know it is touching it, but our building does not seem to want to cooperate, and we do not know why. Scratch will sometimes act up like that, but, you know, we gotta forgive. Oh, see, this is the problem. See, this is why you all need to check your work. I just realized it's only repeating until the costume of coins equals 4, not the hearts. It's the coins. So that's why it's not doing that. So we want the costume number of it to do that. So let's try that again. I don't know if that will change it any or not, since it wasn't really depending on that, but we'll see. Yeah, no, it didn't do anything, but that's still an important thing to fix. So if we check our work, it says it's repeating, changing its X, so it's still moving. Until the X equals less than negative 240. Let's try making this 230 just in case it also wants to stop there. And then if touching cat flying or touching color, let's maybe add another, like change the touching color to this black that's on the edge of it, just in case, because this black because that color of black is what it would touch first. So let's try that and see what happens, because that might work instead. Because I think what it's really not getting is that it's touching the cat. So the black didn't work either. So if it's touching cat flying or touching orange, then it should broadcast live sound. So let's actually stop this when it's touching the cat so we can see if it's sensing this properly. So is it touching cat flying? True. Is it touching color orange? True. Maybe it's not sensing this at that point. Let's try taking this glide thing out, because I don't think that really changes anything or not. We've got our coins moving. Of course, we're also going to want to move these hearts out of the way at some point. There we go. So that worked. Nice. And there we go. It's taking our hearts down. So everything is in working order. Let's move this up here. We don't want the building to disappear as soon as it touches the person. We only want it to disappear if it's touching, if it goes all the way off the screen. So let's make another if. We can just duplicate this one except change everything about it, because I'm just lazy. I just don't like going and getting everything. And then we'll duplicate this x equals more than 230 and do that. So if it equals more than 230, then hide, and if it equals wait, how did I fix that last time? I had it so that it would keep going back behind, like keep going, but it doesn't really matter if it's touching it. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So we can just keep that how it was before. Yeah. That's just a visual thing. If you guys figure out how to change that later, that's perfectly fine. So let's try this from the beginning. We have our play button. We have our coins going. You can collect the coins. It should be changing the score. I think, yeah, let's check the coins just to make sure. Oh, I forgot it's changing my variable. Let's make sure that that's score. I'm losing hearts. See what happens when I get to 0 hearts. I'll just stand down there and wait for a building to come hit me. Oh, so now the last thing we need to do is make the game over thing. So when costume number equals 4, then broadcast game over. Now what happens when the game is over? Well, I will tell you. When the game is over, then, so let's just do this in the hearts one. When I receive game over, then we'll play a very sad sound. Well, not a sad sound, but like a very disappointing sound. So there's a sound called disconnect. That's like, sounds like this. That's like you failed. So play disconnect until done, then switch backdrop to home screen. And when it switches to home screen, then also we want, so there's also a connect sound that sounds like the disconnect one, but like it's a positive version of it. So when you start the game, it should make that sound. There we go. Okay, so we start, and then let's just sit here until the buildings come and we die. we can get a couple of coins. So we can see that the score is changing. We have our building coming. Ow. Another building coming. Ow. There's another building. Ow. Game over. There we go. The coins went away. The buildings went away. Everything is in working order. And if you want, you can make the score only show when you're on the play screen. It's not mandatory, though, in case they want a little reminder of what their last score was before they play again. You can just have it on there and save yourself the time. So that is it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of my other videos. And if you followed this tutorial, don't forget to comment on the example project with a link to the tutorial, not the tutorial, to the game that you did so that I can feature it in my studio and add you as a featured coder. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!